fault is it? Who's the enemy? Who are the bad guys? In my opinion, it's the schools. The schools are the villains. It's the schools that are causing people to fail. The schools are the failures, in my opinion. It's the schools that fail, not the students. Because the schools are not using methods that are effective, that work. So they're teaching their students years and years and years and years and years. I mean, middle school, high school, and for many students, university too. And for some, even grad school. All these years, and then after all of that, many of these students still do not feel confident speaking English. I mean, that's a problem. That should tell you that something's not working well. It shouldn't be that difficult. But even worse than that is that schools train people to fail. And they teach them beliefs that hurt them later in life. See, the problem is schools really train you to be afraid. They train you to lose confidence. They train you to be afraid of taking risks and trying new things. And all of those things are necessary for success. The two of the main beliefs that most schools teach, not directly, but indirectly they teach these beliefs, are number one, that mistakes are bad and must be avoided. And the other belief is that there's a right answer, one right answer, and then everything else is not correct. If you believe those two things, you will have a very difficult time in your life. You'll have a difficult time being happy, and you'll have a difficult time having really great success. Because they're both lies. They're both not true. And see, Jackie believed both of them. That's why she was afraid to change. That's why she just kept trying the same things again and again and again, never succeeding. See, what do we learn from a very young age in school? We learn that mistakes are bad, right? We are punished for mistakes in school. How are we punished? Well, the most simple way is that we lose points on tests. If you get a wrong answer, -1, -5. Red mark, right? Well, it's quite clear very quickly to any child that, oh, that's not good, that's bad. My parents get upset when that happens, and my teacher obviously doesn't like it, so mistakes are bad. Don't make mistakes. And of course, in school, what is a mistake? In school, a mistake is having a different idea than the teacher. Really, isn't that what it is? Teacher asks a question. If you give an answer that the teacher doesn't agree with, then the teacher says you made a mistake, that you're wrong. And then you get punished, -1, or they just say, no, you're wrong. And for someone who's very young, that goes deep into your psychology. And it continues as we get older, into middle school, into high school. We get embarrassed when we make mistakes. And so by the time you finish high school or university, deep in your unconscious, you have this belief that mistakes are bad, that you must avoid mistakes. And if you make a mistake, you feel nervous, you feel upset, you feel embarrassed, and then you want to avoid that situation. Can you see how that would hurt you in trying to be successful with English speaking? Because when you speak English, if you're not born as a speaker and you come to a country and you start speaking, you will make mistakes. I promise you, you're going to make mistakes when you speak and when you write. In fact, I was born in the United States. I grew up with English my whole life, and I still make mistakes when I speak sometimes. I make grammar mistakes. I make pronunciation mistakes. Many times in these audios, we do not correct my mistakes. I want you to see that it happens. I'm speaking naturally. Sometimes I forget to say the, for example. I'm just speaking quickly and I drop the, or I drop a certain word. Sometimes I pronounce a word kind of strange because I'm excited and I'm speaking very quickly and I say the wrong word or I pronounce it weird. And then if I recognize it, if I realize I made a mistake, sometimes I'll pause and correct it. Sometimes I just keep going. It's natural. And how did I learn and master English as a small child? As a baby, did I speak perfect English? Of course not. As a child, did I speak perfect English? No. Did my parents smack me or yell at me or criticize me every time I made a mistake as a child speaking English? Of course not. They did the opposite. Whenever I said like a new word or something, they got very excited and happy. Oh, he said that word. That's cool. Wow. And they got excited and I got excited. Right? We don't punish babies for making mistakes. Oh, but in school, suddenly everything becomes so serious and we can't make mistakes. And as adults, we fear this making mistakes. And here's the bigger problem. Because you fear making a mistake, you will avoid situations where you might make a mistake. So in other words, you become more shy as an English speaker than you really are in your normal life when you speak your own language. You become shy about communicating with people. You become shy about chatting with people. You become shy about writing to people, emailing them, or writing on a website or something. And because you get shy and you don't communicate as much, you don't get to listen to other people as much. You don't get as much experience with communicating in real spoken English. And because of that, you learn more slowly. Your fear of mistakes slows your learning. Another thing that it does is having a fear of making mistakes, even a small amount, makes you more nervous, which means your speaking will be worse, right? It kind of, we've all had this feeling. This happens to me in Spanish. I learned a little bit of Spanish in high school, and now I fear making mistakes, and I try to break it, but even though my Spanish is terrible, I get really, kind of nervous about speaking it. Even just really simple stuff. And that causes me to speak in a really terrible way, even worse than I normally would. So this fear of making mistakes destroys our lives. It's not just with English speaking, it happens in all parts of life. A lot of people, for example, want to start their own business. They never do because they are afraid of failing. Well, the risk of failing is always there. I mean, when I started my business, I was afraid to fail too, but I did it anyway. And that's true with anything in life. And school kind of creates this strong fear of mistakes. The other thing that school does is it creates in our brains this idea that there's one right answer. There's one right answer, right? You have a question on the test, and then there's 4 or 5 choices, A, B, C, D. One is correct, and the other ones are wrong. And after years and years and years of taking those kinds of tests, we just naturally, unconsciously, start to have that mentality that there are only a few possible answers. There are only a few choices, 4 or 5. And that one of them is correct, and the other ones are wrong. Like some students, for example, maybe they don't like my teaching method, and they don't agree with my 7 rules. Occasionally, it doesn't happen very much, but very rarely, some student will try to argue with me about it. They'll say, no, you're wrong. We have to study textbooks. This is the way. This is what my teachers told me. This is the right way. And then they wait, and they're expecting me to argue with them, right? They're expecting me to say, no, you're wrong. Mine is the right way. But I don't do that. Because I don't believe there is only one right way handed down from heaven. It's not, that's bullshit. It's totally wrong. Now, based on research and my teaching experience, I do believe that the effortless English system is best for most students, in my experience, about 95%, who want to master spoken English, listening and speaking. However, I never say to somebody, this is the only method, and that's it. If someone argues with me like that, and they have this mentality, there's only one right answer, I just tell them, I don't argue at all. I say, I find that this method works best for most students. However, maybe it's not best for you. If you prefer to study vocabulary lists and grammar, if you are improving quickly, if you're very happy with your improvement and your progress, keep doing what you're doing. Don't change anything. If you're getting great results, continue doing exactly what you're doing, whatever it is. It's working for you. That's great. Keep doing it. My system is for people who are frustrated, people who are not happy with the results they're getting from normal methods. Most of my students are not happy about using grammar and vocabulary lists and all of that stuff. They're not happy with the results they're getting. Most of my students have studied using normal methods for many years, but they're still nervous and shy and not very good when they really need to speak English. So that frustrates them, so they're looking for something different because they're not happy with the results they have gotten with normal methods. I'm super happy to teach those students. You're probably one of them if you're listening to this. For the small group who are using normal methods, studying grammar books and tests, and they're just doing great, and they're really happy, and they're getting fantastic results and improving so much, I just tell them, great, keep doing it. That's fine. If it's not working, you should probably try something else. If it's working great, keep doing whatever you're doing. See, there's not just one right answer, but that's what we learn in school. And so that's why a lot of people, again, when they're trying to speak English, they freeze. They want to say something, but then they just start thinking, how do I say this? And they think in their mind that there's only one right way to say it. Like, a lot of students will think, okay, in this situation, I must use the past tense. But the truth is that native speakers might use the past tense. They might use the present perfect. There's several choices, depending on the emotion they want to express, depending on their own sort of perspective. I'm sure all of you know, like, for example, when we talk about the future, we might use the present tense sometimes, and sometimes we might use the future or various versions of the future. And sometimes they're both totally correct. All of them, all the many different ways of saying it, they're all equally correct. It depends on how you want to say it. Each of them has a slightly different feeling. That's the advanced part of it. It can be a little complicated. Each one gives a little bit of a different feeling, slightly different meaning, but there's not one right answer. I see this kind of thinking sometimes on our member forums. People will pick some sentence from one of my lessons, and they'll have this debate and argument about, well, he used the past perfect here, but he should have used the past, the simple past. And then other people will say, no, the past perfect is correct. And other people will say, no, he should have said the present perfect. And they're all right and they're all wrong. Because the truth is, in some situations, all of those could be correct. I just chose one of them. I didn't think about it. It just happens quickly. When you use your own native language, you're not analyzing it all the time. And yet here they are analyzing one sentence and debating the one answer because they're stuck with this idea from school that there's one right answer. Well, it must be this. You can't have 5 right answers. You can't have 10 correct answers. They can't all be correct. That's what we're taught in school, right? It's this unconscious training we get from school. And so the problem with that is it gets you thinking too much. You take one sentence and you freeze when you want to speak because you're not sure. Is it this one or this one or this one? And then you start thinking of all the rules in your head and, oh my God, and then you're all worried about making a mistake and choosing the wrong one. When the truth is, maybe all of them are correct and it doesn't matter. Just say one of them. So that's why I believe that schools are the enemy. Schools are the villains. Schools destroy confidence. They destroy their students' confidence. That is the worst sin of schools, in my opinion. They make students worried. They make students nervous about using English, trying it. They make students constantly worried about making a mistake or choosing the wrong answer. All of this discourages students from just trying things and using the language to communicate and improving naturally and easily. Because if you get rid of all of that, if you're not nervous, if you're not worried about making mistakes, if you're like a child, just listening and communicating, and that's all you care about, you will improve very, very quickly. But when you start getting into the school system and you get all these ideas and worries in your head and all these analytical methods of analyzing one sentence and trying to debate which grammar tense or which grammar rule is the correct one, what is the right answer and what is the wrong answer, you get all that in your head and suddenly you become really confused and it's hard for you to understand when someone's speaking to you fast, and it's hard for you to just speak in an easy, quick, natural way. So, schools are the enemy. Schools are the villain. All of these problems caused by schools are the reason that I created my own system, the Effortless English System. This is why, because I saw this in almost all of my students, and I could see how unhappy they were, how frustrated they were, how confused they were, and I realized the way that schools are teaching is not working. It's not effective, and in fact, it's harming the students. We have to find a better way. And yes, I believe that the Effortless English System is a much, much, much better way, and most of my students agree. I hope you agree too. And I hope you'll use it, most of all, to improve your spoken English and to enjoy it again. Stop worrying so much about mistakes and stop debating and analyzing about what the right answer is. And just focus on listening and understanding the meaning, and focus on communicating clearly your own thoughts and ideas and feelings. And don't worry about the rest of it, because the rest of it will happen naturally and effortlessly. That's why it's called Effortless English. All right, have a great day and enjoy your English learning. See you again. Bye-bye.